This is another one about angry children. And when our kids are really angry and they're yelling, we often get put in this position where we feel like we have to do something because our kids are doing something that's labeled as rude. And when our kids are being rude, we feel like we have to discipline them or else they're kind of quote unquote getting away with it. If we just hold space for them and acknowledge their feelings, but we don't do something, then we let them get away with it. And we have been kind of taught that if we allow that to happen, then we're just going to see more and more of that rude behavior and the world is going to end and really bad things are going to happen. So we're going to walk through that really quickly and come up with a slightly different strategy perhaps to what you've been doing in the past. So first of all, remember that the point of discipline is to teach, not to punish. So we are humans, we nurture our young, we teach them. So it's not about punishing them. So it's not about getting them in trouble for what they did. It's about teaching them. So each one of these moments where you notice that your child is behaving in a certain way. So if you think they've been rude, we're going to use that moment as a learning opportunity, as a growth opportunity to learn something new. So remember, you notice something, your brain says that's rude behavior. You are not heading down a path where you want to punish your child. If you're going to head down a path, it's going to be a path where you want to teach your child something new. You're going to use that moment where you noticed a behavior that made you go, and you're going to try to use it to grow and learn something new. Okay, so what is rude? What is the definition of rude? Rude varies between cultures. It's a dynamic thing. The same thing that may feel rude to somebody one day may not feel rude to them the next day. It varies based on how the situation is. So many things come into rude because rude is simply that the way a child or a person is behaving makes another person feel uncomfortable. So really at its most basic level, rude is not a static thing. It changes, okay? And it depends on how that one person's behavior or words fall on another person. Okay, so it's a transactional thing too. It varies between the two people that are involved in that interaction. So there are three things that you can do when you are experiencing something as rude. So say that you're experiencing your child who is angry, who is yelling as rude. So just really simple, a different, slightly different way of experiencing that interaction that has 3 steps. So the first step is that you're going to basically hold space for your child when they are angry. And your job in step number 1 is to take care of your own big feelings. Okay, so breathe. Notice that if you're experiencing your child's expression of their feelings as rude, that means that you need to take care of your own feelings. And your job as a parent is to hold space for them to express themselves, to validate their feelings, to help them with understanding what those feelings are. So to help them with their emotional awareness, their language around feelings, to help them understand what this feeling is, what this is, what's happening inside of them, because that's part of your job as a parent, is to help them with language. And then the other part of that, along with the validation, is to say to them, and I am right here loving you through this really hard, big feeling that you're having. So you're not doing anything. You're not doing any punishing, any disciplining, anything right there. In that moment when they're having that great big feeling, that's when you're holding that ginormous container for that humongous feeling, like you're holding a nuclear explosion. Okay? That's all you're doing in that moment when the big feeling is there. And I promise you, you are not doing anything wrong. In fact, you are doing them the greatest of blessings by not punishing them in that moment, because remember, their prefrontal cortex is offline. They are not thinking clearly in that moment. They're having an enormous wave of emotion and they can't think clearly. So even if you tried to discipline them in that moment, they're not going to retain anything. Okay, so you wait for that feeling to pass. And in that moment when they're feeling very emotional, what they need is that strong container, that parent who's right there, who's got them, who's got this under control, who's not intimidated by their big emotion, who understands what's going on, who's got it down, and who loves them no matter what's happening, okay? Once that feeling has passed, then you can move on to step 2, okay? And in step 2, that's when you say, yeah, so let's explore what happened earlier. Let's talk about that a little bit. How were you feeling? And then you can have them talk a little bit about how they were feeling. And then you can say, when you use words like that, that sometimes brings up big feelings in the people around you. I know when you talked like that, it made me feel this way. Sometimes when you say things like that, it can make other people feel like this. And you can explore what was happening. And then see how See where that goes. Talk about it. You're not doing that to punish them. You're doing it to teach them. And then after that step, once you've explored that with them, so that's a two-way conversation. And then at the end of that, then you do what I call kind of that whole review at the end. Then you say, so next time those big feelings that we just talked about, that we just identified, come up in you, what do you think you could do to help convey your needs and your feelings in a way that doesn't risk hurting other people or yourself or anyone else or anything else quite as much as the way that just happened back there? So that's your job as a parent, is to help coach them through it. And remember, this is a long distance event. This is not something you're going to get to. It's not a sprint. Okay, we're not going to get there tomorrow, but you're going to keep trying. And each time you do it, it'll be like, oh, we got that one down, but that one went kind of sideways. And you just keep trying. Okay, you've got this.